The title of Matt's speech is An Impossible Journey by MattB. MattB, An Impossible Journey.
I'm going to put some notes here just in case I forget. Tonight, I want you to consider a question. Is there some skill or ability that you lack that would make a really big difference to your life? Perhaps you have a phobia. Maybe a fear of enclosed spaces, or a fear of heights, a fear of flying, perhaps. Or perhaps you're telling yourself that you don't have what it takes to write that novel, or learn that language, or learn a musical instrument. Just think about that for a minute. Now, I'm not going to ask you what it is. Instead, I'm going to tell you about a profound phobia that I let change the course of my life. And like many people who suffer from a phobia, I went for years and years, more than 20 years in fact, convincing myself that it was impossible for me to get over it, that it was just me and that was just the way that it was. I'm also going to tell you about the journey that I've made to overcome it, the treasure, the wonderful lesson I've learned along the way, and I hope that maybe there's something in that that you can use to overcome any barriers that you face. Now, to shine some light on this phobia, I want to take you back to one early Monday morning in 1989. I was in my late 20s, and I was not looking forward to what was about to come. I should tell you that at that point in my life, I had absolutely everything to be grateful for. I was on top of the world in many respects. I had a fantastic job, I was well paid, it was interesting work, it was easy for me. In many ways it was anyway. I had found myself a job with one of the swankiest broking houses in London, and in a short period of time become an expert on forecasting interest rates and currencies. I'm not boasting, but I just want to tell you that my work was read by Bundesbank, the American Federal Reserve, the Japanese Ministry of Finance, the Bank of England, and a whole host of influential people and many other fund managers. Everyone agreed that I had a very bright future. But none of that matters to someone who feels that they're on their way to certain public execution. And that is how I felt that morning, because the week before my boss had told me that I had to come in first thing on Monday morning and address all the senior management in my firm, the senior salespeople. I had to do something that I had avoided for as long as I could remember. I had to speak in public. And I was petrified. And when I say petrified, I wasn't just a little bit nervous. My whole physiology had changed. By the time that I got into that room, my knees were shaking, my body was shaking, I was covered in sweat, my mouth was dry, my eyes were blurred. And when they finally called me to get up and speak, I just remember sort of struggling up to the platform, and in my hand I had a piece of paper that was shaking like a leaf. And I started up here somewhere, and I just remember, I managed to get down a couple of octaves, and I ended up going like this. I'm not exaggerating. And I said something about the market, and that's pretty much all I remember. I just remember this blurry sensation and people looking down at their feet in embarrassment. And someone eventually came and took me and sat me down. That humiliating experience, I would go to my grave with that experience. It was awful. Surprisingly, I didn't get fired. They were very nice about it. But the damage had been done in my head. From then on, I told myself that I could not speak in public and that I had no future in that job. And within a year, I had resigned and set up my own business, which was in the same line of work, but I hoped that I would escape from that, from public speaking. Actually, I should have done a lot more public speaking in my own business, but I didn't. And it never reached its full potential. A few years ago, I sold the business and I came to Australia. When I got here, one of my in-laws very kindly brokered an offer to work part-time, teaching people what I knew. But again, this would have involved speaking in public. And instead of taking up a lucrative part-time job that paid a full-time wage, I decided not to do it. 3 years ago, I decided enough was enough, and I came to Toastmasters, and tonight, you see before you a changed man. I may not be the best public speaker in the world, but I know for sure that I can now go out and speak to a room full of people if I need to. And I also know that if I need to, if I really need to, I can actually do a reasonably good job. Now that's a good outcome, isn't it? But it is not the most valuable lesson I've learned. Not by a long chalk. Let me tell you that throughout the course of my life I've begun many things that I've not completed. I have a whole list of unfinished things that I've begun. When I joined Toastmasters, I don't recall that I had any special resolve, that there was anything particularly different about my desire to become a good public speaker. In fact, 9 months into it, as I remember, the reason I had to stop to become a public speaker disappeared. So you could say that all things being equal, there was every reason that I should have dropped out. So why is it that I'm still here and I've now reached this 10th speech, this competent communicator goal? And as far as I can see, the answer has everything to do with the quality of the Toastmasters organisation. It has very little to do with me. And the more I think about it, the more I realise what a fantastic model for making any kind of change the Toastmasters model is. And if you were to prescribe, a recipe for change, it doesn't come much better than this. Number one, don't rely on your own momentum and resources. Get help. Find a good, friendly support group that has clearly stated positive goals. 2, make sure the group has organised, structured activities. Make sure it's fun and stimulating. Make sure you can communicate with other members of the group. Well, we do that, of course, at Toastmasters. Make sure it has leadership. Make sure you can keep up. Make sure you're not going to be burdening yourself with goals that you can't live up to. And make sure there are plenty of opportunities to get involved in helping others in the group. Because when you start caring about others, that's when your commitment really develops. So learning that has been quite a lesson. Looking back, I can tell you that there was nothing that grim determination had very little to do with my getting this far. It has everything to do with the power of the group, with the fun and the gentle peer pressure that we get from completing these goals and just fulfilling our responsibilities. But that is not the most valuable lesson I've learned either. It's this. I've now done something that once upon a time I was absolutely convinced I could not do. And that, to me, is gold. Because whenever I now face a challenge that I think is difficult or impossible, I can tell myself that I'm probably wrong, and I can remind myself how wrong I was about public speaking. Now, I don't know whether you started from the same extreme position of fear as I did. Maybe you didn't walk away from a fantastic job. Maybe you didn't neglect to build up your business through essential public speaking. Maybe you didn't turn down a lucrative part-time job opportunity. But I would encourage, if you've been a part of Toastmasters for any period of time, it will definitely have changed you. And I would urge you to constantly be taking stock of the progress you've made. And whenever you think of something that is impossible or that seems really difficult, just remember the progress that you and others just like you have made through Toastmasters. Because with the right kind of group support, with the right kind of gentle peer pressure, with the right activities, things that you once thought were impossible are actually quite achievable. And that, my dear friends, is the most valuable lesson of my life. And it is my impossible journey.